people join now. So, good morning, Lilith.
Here come the peoples.
Yay.
In that corner, please.
I think I see a zebra who's popped in.
Yep, it's Jay as well.
Let's get Discord up front. I'm pretty much ready.
True Tales. Morning.
Everyone else good?
Yep.
I'm just making
I'm always
it
good.
I'm just working. There we go. I'm ready.
I can see a Blaze Wolf and Aoife.
It is 11 o'clock. We are ready to begin, I think. Is everyone ready?
Yep.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Marvelous. Brilliant. Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. This is going to start as a kind of just a advice natter between us seven. Is there 7 of us? I think so.
Yes.
And then after that, we'll take some questions. And then once the panel's done, we'll open up everything and everyone can have a natter. Okay, so let's do some introductions.
First things first, before you do that, let people know how to make it just us.
Yeah, I did in the chat. Oh, well, we can do it here as well, I suppose. Yeah, that'll be sensible, wouldn't it?
Just now people are here.
Right, so if you want to just see our lovely faces, so we're all nice and big, there's the 3 dots at the top. It's a more button. Click that, and then untick. It's the other way for me. You're mirrored.
I am mirrored. It's one of the 2 corners.
It's in that. Oh, no, I'm mirrored on it. What? Yeah, I don't know.
That way.
Top right,
Top right.
Of Discord, and then untick show non-video participants, and that will just be us then. Right, so where shall I start?
Oh,
Let's go alphabetically, I suppose. At the top left, we have Noonie. He's called AGB Noonie because he streams. He's my assistant. He'll be taking assistant questions if we have any assistants. And, well, we'll all be taking assistant questions, really, because we can probably all field those. But he'll be primarily taking your questions for us so we can answer them for you. So if you want to ask questions, ask in the Ds and Creators text chat above the voice chat, and he'll take them from there and pass them on to us. If we don't see them anyway. But so make sure you're chatting in there too. Then we've got Heart Lily. Would you like to say a bit about you and what you do?
Hello, I'm Heart Lily. I've probably been in fandom for a good decade now, and I've dealt many places, and I also manage a convention now, so inside and out knowledge.
It's going to be good. How would you like to be? Karis or Rocket Akita?
It's just fine. It's just slowly
Karis.
changing over my alias. So yeah, I am Karis, or as my Twitter and other handles is Rocket Akita. I am a webcomic creator and dealer. I've been in the community actively since about 2014, but I've dabbled inside and out for a long time. So that's about me.
Fab. And then we've got Lapras.
Hello, I'm Lapras. I'm a graphic designer as well as a digital illustrator. I've been in the fandom since 2012, but I've been drawing anthros since '98, so it's been a while. I also do merchandise printing as well.
Then there's me, because we'll just do it in order. I've been in the fandom since 2008. Been taking commissions for a while. Recently stopped to do other things like merchandise and things. I've got experience dealing. I've got an online shop, things like that. Yeah, that's me. Like how to keep many guinea pigs, which will be over here. And then we've got Ook.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. I'm Ook. I don't actually know how long I've been in the fandom, just as long as I've had internet access, which is quite a long time. I tend to do a bit of everything. I'll have a go at drawing, making, and I did my first dealer then at Confuzzled. I was going to say last year, but sadly it was not. Yeah, some of you may have met me there, and some of you may know me online already. Morning.
And then we have Zod.
Hey, hi guys, I'm Art of Zod. I've been in the fandom since probably mid-90s, and yeah, I'm a freelance illustrator and graphic designer. Yeah, but I've been to quite a few conventions over my time, so hopefully my information can be useful to those people. Cool.
Brilliant. Okay. Right, where should we start then? We have this amazing list.
Do you want me to start running down the list?
Sure.
Drum roll.
Awesome. That's the best you're going to get. So most often the first question is why should I deal? But since people are already here in a dealers and creators meetup, I'm going to assume that you already have an avid interest in either wanting or just generally interested. So I won't bother going with that question. So the first one I put at the top of the list is in real life, online, or both. If you are going to deal, what's the best place for you? Now, funnily enough, everyone's said that they have some input on this one. So probably worth just, if you have an opinion on whether you think online or offline or both is good, just jump in at this point. We'll see how we do.
Personally, I think diversifying your income, especially if you're an artist, is incredibly important. So if you're able to do both digital commissions, like online stuff, graphic design, whatnot, but also able to take that into the real world and being able to deal, it can definitely help out.
Yeah, I mean,
That's-
thinking about like you need to take things with you to send people to your online presence as well, because I think quite often people will come to a den and they'll collect everybody's cards and any way to contact them, and then after the convention they quite often will contact if they fancy something from you.
Yeah, you're also building a customer base online beforehand, so they know to come to you rather than just stumbling across you, which is my approach.
Yeah. I personally found that my online presence wasn't that big before actually attending a convention like Confuzzled. So although I was advertising myself prolifically online, I wasn't getting the sales that I got from being able to have a physical presence at a den and then build a community from there of a following for my product.
No,
Just as an interesting exercise to touch on that, out of the people that we've got here, who started first offline, maybe just taking commissions in person? Raise your hand. So the rest of you started your art career online then? That was your first dipping into the fandom and doing it as a hobby or profession, however you choose to decide what it was back then?
Yeah. In the early 90s, obviously, internet was still in its early days. So I guess back then we had things like Fur Nation and VCL and Yerf and things like that were relatively small. So if you posted online, if your work stands out, there would always be a set number of artists that rise above in that community. But obviously nowadays it's so diverse now. It's insane now how many talented people there really are out there now. And it's physically, being there in person is stands out more than online now. So
I started taking commissions at my first London meet, as it were. Just had up a little sign, started taking commissions, people onboarded, and that's how I gauged interest to see if people actually were interested. And that's when I started my online presence, because I thought no one's interested in talking to me in person and commissioning. There's no point doing the online. So a little bit different for me.
You said to do it the other way around. I was too scared to try and sell myself in person, so to speak. So I used the anonymity of a online presence to build up a community of fans and commissioners. And that's how I then got the confidence to do an in-person sale at Confuzzled.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice. Ties in nicely with the next question, though, since we've all gone what to sell, like where to sell. How about the what to sell? So the next topic to touch on briefly is, pretty much what to sell. How do you know?
Let me start on that one.
Yes, do.
Go for it. You have an idea.
Right, so when I first started selling at Confuzzled, I think that was my first convention, I went with a supplier and I asked them how much should I print of my work. And of course they went, you need 100 copies. Silly me went with 100 copies. And if it's your first time dealing, don't buy 100 copies of each of your prints. A waste of money. You're not going to have that much footfall and definitely not that much interest in one singular print. So I would recommend if you're going to start doing prints at a con, do 10, 15 of each. If you run out, so what? At least you're out of stock and you haven't got anything to take home with you. So start small if you're going to start with prints.
Good advice there, because it's such a trap to fall into, is thinking I need to bring loads just in case I run out of stock. But actually, being out of stock is a good thing.
Yeah.
It seems weird, but going home with an empty box at the end of the con, there's no feeling like it.
Yep.
Like, I've done it.
I'm guilty of this where I've overbought things and I still have postcards and prints from my very first Confuzzled up in my loft. So it's like you want to start not with too much, kind of gauge the waters and whatnot. And then, when you start seeing what your demand's going to be like, then go from there.
You can always number your prints as well. So if you're selling 10, 15, it's one of 15, that makes it a bit more exclusive and limited edition.
Adds exclusivity, and sort of on the topic of what to sell, obviously for people who are mainly artists, prints, stickers, the usual fare that people look for is great. But in my case, I brought a load of stuff that I sewed. So it's all one-off individual, quite large pieces, really, if you think of them as pieces. And having to make sure that you price pointed things between, oh, we can pick that up for £2, or yes, I'll spend £65 on a one-off backpack. So it basically tells your strength.
Yeah, you also need to take into account that each year your ability to produce will, the quality of that will increase. So if you buy 100 prints of your first ever attempt of marketing yourself, within 4 years' time, you won't want to sell the remainder because they don't fully demonstrate your capabilities of now because you've grown so much as an artist or a creator or merchandise.
They make great backing paper though, which is great.
Still,
even when they're 300 DSM.
Thick.
Still sticking just for a little bit longer with the what to sell. I think, Duke, you probably got some good info on this one, but selling not necessarily furry-related merchandise at a furry dealer's den. It doesn't always have to be covered in paws and claws and tails and scales, does it?
Yeah, because at the end of the day... Oh, sorry, Chris.
No, you carry on. You were being asked. That was me being hyperactive and excited.
Just saying, at the end of the day, we are all furries, but we are also all people. And people also like things that aren't necessarily covered in paws. So I brought things with me. So one of the items I brought with me was a lady's wallet. It was quite a large, openable, flap wallet. The front flap had loads of pigeons on it. And that sold on my first day. Someone came along, fell in love with it, and that was that. But it wasn't sort of typical furry fare. There were a lot of items on my table that didn't even have an animal on. And people just loved them because it was something completely different at a con. I actually brought plants with me. You can just see in the background, this is a picture of my table from last Confuzzled. I brought small succulents with me. The only thing people worried about was getting them home. But at the end of the day, most people, well, I think I brought 3 back with me at the end, and I took 20 to the con. So people bought plants at Furry Con. And it's just thinking of what are those things that are sort of adjacent that people would find useful, that they could also sort of subtly show their furriness in everyday life. So one of the backpacks was covered in dogs, and that sort of thing.
You really do have to remember that although you're at a furry con, you're not just selling your furry merchandise. You're selling yourself as a merchant as well. So take everything that represents what you do. So on my first couple of years, I was taking fan art that I had done of Fallout and was selling the prints of those. And they went faster than my actual furry work to begin with because they were spin-offs of memes and things.
I think one of the important things to remember is when you're dealing in a den, everybody's tastes are different. So some people like the over the top, like I'm a furry, like whoa. And I'm the sort where I like really low key things. Where if I were to put it up in my house, it's if I have people coming over, they're not going to be like, "What's that?"
Yeah. I think that's also. I keep saying about Hearts' prints, but actually Hearts' prints.
Tasteful.
They're tasteful. They're not overly furry, even though they are clearly anthropomorphic characters, and they're easy to frame in your home. Things that you can put in your home that your mum can visit and not be slightly odd about them.
Yeah.
People like those.
I think selling a range of size of items and complexity of items is really good as well. So like you can have a big range of price points. So, for example, I sell things at the minimum for 50p.
Yep.
And then the maximum, I've got some really big commissions you can get from me, which are hundreds of pounds, of oil paintings and such. So having that range really helps, I think, as well.
Definitely tiering your work so that you get to everyone. That's good.
Your goal should be, was what I say when I go to Dealer's Den, you should be trying to sell at least £1, £2 for each person who attends the con. So if you think about it, if you have 500 people visit your table and they all spend 50p, that's already £1,000. So if you have something that's 50p a pound, you can make £1,000 just by doing that. So cheap is good, but obviously having prints and commissions is better.
Also, if you're selling cheap, make sure you've got a coin purse for change, because there's nothing worse than having to give a load of change for a £20 note when someone spent 50p and then you've got no petticoats left.
Yep. That leads nicely into the next one, doesn't it?
I think it leads nicely into the next one, which is running a table. Which, funnily enough, since we're all here part of the dealers chat, I'm hoping you've all been to Confuzzled and run a table, and none of you have snuck in. Everyone, I think, has popped an X next to this one, which is understandable. But since we're on the topic of like coinage, let's cover running a table specifically. Cash or card?
Both.
Yeah.
Both.
I found that last the last CF that went. I think myself and Rocket, we both bought a card reader. That was when we bought, and that made a big difference. That in terms of sales,
made a huge difference.
Yeah, because like you always get someone that won't have any change because they spent all their money on another table, and they always ask you, "Oh, do you have a change of this?" Or not only that, they'll say, "Oh, I don't have any cash on me right now because I spent all my money, so I need to go back." And so making them go out and get money to you is.
Or sending them a PayPal invoice is good.
Yeah, PayPal
so
invoice.
Get their Telegram.
Yeah.
I'm constantly asking for people's Telegrams.
Yeah.
So you can't be shy about your contacts when you're a dealer at a den, because if you withhold your people being able to direct contact you, you lose sales.
I think
sometimes your card machine doesn't quite work. Sometimes there might be an issue with antennae 1 hour, which I had, so I had to direct everyone through PayPal invoicing.
Or the Bluetooth just doesn't connect, and you have to reset your phone and the reader 3 times over for it to do anything.
I think for these sort of things,
it's embarrassing at times.
I think for these sort of things, you definitely have to invest in like 3G connections, because obviously the hotel Wi-Fi is probably the last thing you want to do doing transactions over, because everyone else is probably using that.
Make sure you've got large amounts of gigabytes in your data allowance when you're dealing at a con, because you don't want to use the con's Wi-Fi because you'll be there for 3 hours.
Bad time.
Competing with 3,000 other attendees who all want to use the Wi-Fi.
So I've actually got a 10 gig deal on mine.
There we go. That's a good thing. Yeah.
Just to cover that.
I think before attending Confuzzled or any convention, just buy some data plan. Just buy a little data plan which lasts you through that.
You can do them for a month as well.
Yeah, a month. Yeah.
I would recommend
within a day. That cost of having to do that extra data plan for that weekend, it will be paid back within a day if you do it.
And they're expensive.
It's not really an expense when you think about it that way.
And also, you don't need 10 gig for one weekend. 5 gig maximum if you're really going at it. 2 gig probably the average.
But if you are starting out in a den, you don't need to do all this straight away. Just stick with cash. Make sure you have a float. Oh my god, a float. And have I
started my float with how I tend to set up my float is with 30 quid worth of £5 notes, £20 worth of pounds, £10 worth of 50p's, and then so I end up with about 70 quid in a float, but it's so much in change. You need it.
A hotel will not do you a float. You need to go to a bank to do your float, because if you go to a hotel on a day saying, "Oh, I need some change," it's very rare they're going to be like, "Yeah, we'll do that for you," because they need the change for their own sales. So get your float before the con.
I think it needs to be said what a float is, because it's such a unique word.
I was waiting to jump in there.
Yeah, go for it.
For those of you who are not familiar with the term, a float is the cash and loose change that you go to a con before you even start making sales, so that you have available change to give people, because inevitably people will turn up and say, "I would like that little trinket that costs £1. Here is a £50 note."
Yeah, you have to make sure. it's tricky, and you have to make sure that you have enough change that if two people come to your table consecutively with £50 notes trying to buy something for £1, that you can give them both change. And this isn't an expense. The money's not going anywhere. You're just taking it out of one place and putting it into your tub, and you'll have that same amount at the end. You should account for it. So always bring a book.
The
It's also
hotel will
worth
cover it.
noting as well, that there would be Scottish notes flying around. So if you can,
Yes.
I'm gonna name Bushibu because she's based in Scotland, but I usually go to her at the end of the con and exchange all my Scottish notes with her, and she gives me all her English ones. So
Nice.
we're covered. Not that
I
they
tend
would
to
be
just keep
accepted.
them because
but-
they've got otters on.
Yeah, I kept the one with the fish on it. I think it's a £5. It's got mackerel all over it.
There was a comment very briefly made in the chat that before it disappears, float pens and note checking pens to make sure that £50 note is a genuine one.
So I'm not worried about it personally.
No,
I've
Yeah,
never
also
had
we
them,
do
but-
keep saying £50 notes, but Reaper has made a very good point. Don't take them. Just
Yeah.
I've never had to. I've only once or twice had to exchange a £50 note. They've been genuine notes. My bank has taken them. I've never even considered worrying about getting a float pen. And I think with the fact that everything's becoming contactless with payment now, that's going to become even less of a worry.
the international attendees especially will turn up with £50 notes because that's what they could get from their currency exchange.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not their fault.
I've come away with a Scottish £50 note, and I was like, "Is this real money? I've never seen this before in my life." But yeah, no, I don't. I've never worried because I don't know. I suppose I don't really ever see furries as being
with
like
the amount
international criminals or something.
Also, with the amount that you're taking, if you get one £20 note that is fake, it's not going to cut into the amount of profit that you usually take from attending the convention.
I've had fake
On
pound
average.
coins come through before.
I've had fake pound coins, and losing a pound coin is not much.
And
Usually
I don't think the person knew it was fake. To be honest, they just had it.
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah, I think
else.
they just float around anyway. I've had those as change from like actual shops. So.
Yeah.
I quite like to collect them.
Use them as a tip at Nando's when you go for there for lunch.
Okay, right. I don't want to get carried away on one topic, so reining it back into the running a table, more towards the physical aspect there. So when you're actually setting up at Confuzzled and you see all of the other dealers in the hall setting up, what springs to your mind of how to physically lay out your table and what do you bring? Do you like to do set dressing and the like? Anyone want to jump in for this one?
Oh, yeah.
Quickly.
Start from the top and work way down.
I'm a bit of a geek, and I use a software called SketchUp, and you can actually 3D render a table and plan it out, get the measurements, get all your prints on there.
Never
as
even
well.
considered
So
that.
you are set up when you arrive, and then I go to my partner, build that, and put the prints up, and I'll have a tea, and then I just do the flowers afterwards. But it's really good if you attend with a plan and you measure the table and you set up beforehand and take pictures at least, so you know what you're doing in a day. If stuff starts happening, there's too many people going on. But
I'll jump in very briefly at this point and just remind Ook that remember to measure your table space.
Yes. Measure your table space. Because I didn't, when there was two tables pushed together, I just laid out and I ended up encroaching on yours just a tiny bit. Sorry. But yeah.
I think it's because there was a notch in the table, wasn't there? And
There
Frith had
was,
measured it
yeah.
out to that. It was
Yeah.
notch rather than the actual edge of the table.
Right. So, Karis, next.
Your own tablecloth, because it will definitely wrap up your brand. So if your work, like mine is mostly space, I have a space-based, so I have a navy tablecloth. I know that Indie Wolf has a custom printed one, which is awesome. Definitely bring your own tablecloth because it just adds that extra depth to your stall, and also get print racks, because adding height really helps elevate the amount, because you don't want just laying a load of prints out on the table, because that will take up too much space. You want a stand, you want some sort of racking. There's loads of very cheap and compact ways to transport different types of stands. Everyone's getting those square stands that you can put together and make
racking.
boxes and make stuff. That's the stuff.
I brought it to the CF first, and then I noticed it got it started appearing everywhere. I was like, oh shit, what have I done? But if you are going to use that, I think you can only go 3 or 4 high. If you go higher than that, you need to build in some additional support because I have seen some of them fall down. So don't go too high and have an accident because health and safety, guys.
We cable tie ours.
Don't top heavy it either. That's the other
Yes.
thing.
Do not top heavy your stands.
Things like
Up your stand, make sure that you have made a little hidden cubby for you to put your quick notes and commission note list and things in, so you're not forever rummaging under the table for what you're needing to grab constantly.
so my table actually has that built in. I'll just move myself out of the way a little bit. So you can see there that box that I have things resting on. That box is open at the back. I use that for transporting things into the con because it's open. I can then keep my float and my money and my bits and pieces in there. It also adds height to the table, and it was custom made by a local maker near to me. He also made my sign, my other sign, and my stand, all spec for £20 out of old pallets. So it's also worth, if you want something that stands out a little bit and you don't want to buy all the same stuff as everybody else, you can just go and see if somebody in your local area is making stuff like that and give them a spec. Commission them as if you would an artist because they'll love it. He's so he's made my entire table set up, and it works really well. It looks heavy, but it's not, and it looks good when you walk past it. People go, "What's that? Why is it all wood? Oh, that's cool," and they stop and look.
It's different.
I'll just bring myself back in.
My turn now. I'll be short and concise on the table.
Roller banners are also good. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, no, go on. Roller banners.
Roller
banners, yeah.
Right, Zod, you're up next. I'm deciding.
I want to keep it short and sweet. I definitely agree what Hartley says about the 3D stuff. What I used to do is I used to get measuring tape at home and measure out a size, the exact size of the table, and just do it locally, just do it at home, and then when I'm happy with it, take a photo of it, and then just replicate that. And the sheets, I tend to use like a silky black cover. Obviously, my work tends to pop out better on black over black. So again, you have to play around with these things to find out what kind of cover suits you. But yeah, it stands out. It will stand out a lot more than the default covers that you normally get at Confuzzled, which are I think those covers are just
white.
There to protect the tables.
They're just plain white.
I like my white one.
Oh yeah, no.
I never bring sheets with me. I'm happy with the white tablecloth. But that's because I put plants everywhere.
Ook's picture there is black was the generic cover at the last one.
Okay.
Was that? I don't think it was.
I thought it was white.
No, it's usually white.
Yeah, it was white.
It looked like a bed
It's
sheet.
just
You can ask, because I had black and I asked one of the waiters and they gave me a white one.
I had black.
Okay, special.
That's something to know.
Also, on the subject of table layout, Hearts' pet hate is we call them table limpets.
Oh yes. I don't tend to get table limpers. I've never actually had them before, and I think that might be the way my table is built. I have a lot of stuff quite close to the front, so people can't just bash my mic. Can't get too close, or they'll knock the table and stuff will wibble, which I think scares them away.
Some table limits dump their bags on your table, which can often damage your prints and stuff. So it can, if you notice someone's just about to do it, just say, "Hey, stop! You're going to damage my goods. Don't." And we were joking about it last night, putting cactuses and stuff in front of the table to stop table limpets. But most of the time, people are just a bit anxious and stressed, and you just kindly ask them, please don't lean against the table or put your bags on there. Please just respect the table.
I've never personally had that issue, but I can see how it would happen. But most of the time, people are too scared to come near my stuff and even look to sift through my stuff. And I'm like, come closer. But yeah, I've never personally had that kind of encounter.
In my usual table design, I like going a bit more vertical and whatnot, but I like leaving enough space so that if someone wants to have a conversation about something either work related or they just want to have a chat because they want to talk to somebody, I'll try to say we'll just kind of stand off to the side and I'll still stand there with them so I can still converse. But then that allows other people to take the time to, if they want to look at your stuff, then there's an opening to do so.
Yeah.
I always position the way I'm standing off center so that people come to talk to you on that off center point and you have other people able to come and view your merchandise.
Yeah, I think another key thing with that is that you've got to have a little bit of confidence just to say, as a customer here, I need to talk to I need to talk to them.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you
Yeah.
after the den or a bit later, or yeah, we were talking about that last night. I think that's really important.
I try to do it as nicely as possible, where it's like, "Yo, come here, stand over here, come over here," and it's a way to have them feel like you're not ostracizing them, and so that you can then kind of herd them off to the side, but enough so that you're still able to have them more in your space, so that they still feel like they're being included.
Yeah. And things like so I was just looking at our list of what we were talking about next. We seem to have skipped down to physical table layout, but that's fine. Things like when customers walk past and they become interested in your layout, how do you then pull them in? Because a lot of us are socially anxious. A lot of us we're nerds at the end of the day. So
Easiest thing that you can possibly do is just say, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you enjoying your convention?" It's simple, end of, and it sparks up a conversation.
Yeah, I agree with
Like
that.
someone that you recognize, just go, "Hey, nice t-shirt." Anything to just pick something that draws your eye to a person to invite them to talk to you. So say they've got awesome coloured hair, awesome hairstyle, cool style glasses, anything to just say, if they gain some sort of interest into your table, just to pick that to draw them in and take away that plus of anxiety. Because I'm quite a social anxious person, but as soon as I'm in a con environment, you would not imagine I have any type of stage fright or social anxiety.
It's also important to say that when you're interacting with someone, especially if you're trying to act happy, it needs to be genuine. Because if you're if you're showing like your personal social anxieties on the inside and you try to speak to somebody, sometimes that can be a bit like, maybe they can tell. But if you can genuinely portray yourself like you really want to talk to them, then I think other people can really pick up on that.
I agree with Lapras. In terms of like over my times when I started dealing, like I never used to be that sort of person. I used to be the person that just sit there and said nothing. But as time's gone on, I've transitioned myself away from just being someone that just sits there doing nothing to more vocal, and like when someone goes by, you have a conversation with them, reach out to them, because each person that goes by could be a potential person that who may want to invest in you, but they're really shy. And obviously, as Ook said about the, most people have anxieties as dealers. Dealers have anxiety of talking to people, and I guess there's probably exercises and ways like that to overcome anxiety. Obviously, maybe like facing the mirror and talking to yourself, and just trying to build that confidence of like, if you see someone, how would you just even saying hi to them, or are you having a good time at a convention? Or as you said, I like your badge, or I like your t-shirt. Already that you're reaching out. And if they respond back to you, then a conversation can start, and that kind of breaks the barrier down, and obviously lowers the anxiety of making you feel a bit comfortable at conversation. And I think as dealers, it's an important aspect, because it's pretty much retail, isn't it? Because you're trying to draw attention, and you're trying to catch customers. So it's one of the things you have to get prepared for if you want to deal, is to talk with people, because that's what it's about. Customers won't come to you by. Oh, sorry. Oh, God.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, customers won't come to you if you don't say nothing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
What I learned in car sales is they've already set foot in the dealer's den. They've made a conscious decision to come into that room because they want to buy something. They're in that room in a buying mindset, and people buy from people. So if you are a people, and they can see you're a people, and they like your things, they've already got the money there. They've made the decision they're going to buy something. So you just have to show them what they want to buy.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to that social anxiety thing as well, is that people that go into the den, like say they come to my table, they probably wouldn't realize at this point that I'm a very introverted person, and I don't really like conversing. But every year that's gone on, it's become easier and easier. So at the start, it might be really difficult for you, but as time goes, you'll end up finding your vibe and just be able to start talking to people.
Yeah, I mean, it takes different lengths of time for everybody, because I mean, I still find it quite difficult. But I mean, the way I combat that is I have my assistant, Noon, he's very good at talking to people. So he can, if I'm kind of not quite getting to the point where I'm kind of waving people in and saying, "Hey, you look great," whatever, all that stuff. He'll go for me essentially. And I noticed someone asked in the chat if working on commissions at the table is a good idea. And I think there is an issue there in that you're not then looking out. I need to move my microphone. Looking out into the crowd and interacting.
Yeah.
So yes, you could, but you're not necessarily going to be reining people in to buy as much, unless you have a very charismatic assistant to help you.
I've asked people about that. When someone walks up to your table, if someone's working on a commission, what do you hope they would do? And typically is that they would stop and at least look up and say hello. And I've heard of people trying to then, ask about what they're doing, and then they're just being, they're so into what they're doing, they're not hearing someone try to talk to them, and then they either lose that sale or that person then looks back at them and it's just like, nope.
Yeah, it's all about body language, because if you're working on something and you're not and someone's talking to you, you're not really in their impression. Obviously, if they're people who, as I've said before, they have social anxiety and they're they're saying hi to you, and you're working away and you're not looking at them, making eye contact, and like hi, and to them they think, oh, I'm not special. I'm not in a nice. I'm not saying a nice mean way here, but like they're thinking that, oh, this person's not treating me like I'm not special anymore by not looking at me. So
they don't like me.
Yeah. So this is why, I think, I don't know about you dealers here. This is why I never do any work at the table. The table's all about selling, talking, selling, and that's it. And then, and then after that, once I go home, once the convention's over, then I'll do the work then. But like, I know some people like doing work on the day, which is fine. I think it should be done. I think it's best to do it after the dealers. Then that way you can focus all on your work and get it all done.
Yeah. It depends what they're selling as well. Like I make things at the table like jewelry and bracelets and stuff. So that needs to be done there and then because people want it to walk around the con with. But the key thing is if you are doing that, set it down. If someone comes to your you're going to take a long time to make this thing, obviously, because you're just constantly up and down. But at the same time, you need to interact with people who are coming to you. So
almost make a show of setting it aside and focusing on the customer that's there at the time.
You very much have to consider your time in the dealer's den as a performance, and I personally have found that people who are sat down are often perceived as less inviting to customers because you're not on their eye level. The customers are walking around, you're not on their eye level if you're sat down, so you're automatically, by your body language, disengaging from them. So bring yourself up to their eye level, if not higher. Dance on a chair, bring people's attention to you.
I think we've done it before last year, Karis. You and me together. I was standing out. You're standing next to me. just talking to everyone that came along.
Having a fluff competition on fluff.
Like
we call it when it is now.
It's good.
Good shoes.
I think that goes. I think that kind of drills into the networking side. I think we're going to get to that later, aren't we? Networking. I'll talk about that.
Before we move on from the doing commissions at the table, because we kind of seem to be wrapping that up, I just want to say thank you to Kami. They are a dealer at Kami's Forum for the question, would you say working on commissions at the table is a good idea? Because we addressed the question, but not the person who asked it. So thank you, Kami.
Well, if you're able to multitask with the engagement and the commission, do it. But if you're unable to multitask and balance the social work dynamic, just avoid it. Your work in the den is getting custom as a priority, I would say not doing the commissions is doing the commissions is less of a priority than getting the customers to you.
That covers the table manners, doesn't it?
That's most of the table manners section that was covered. Obviously, self-presentation and approachability is kind of ties in with icebreakers. You want to be engaging and bring people to the table, but you don't want to be
overwhelming.
Hard sale. Like, you're not leaving this table till you bought something. I will change.
Although sometimes that works.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know, watching you occasionally, it's like, wow.
There's some people. I'm trying to find an example. Excuses. There's some people where it's like, you want it. That's totally different than buy this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's etiquette.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to gauge the person.
Yeah.
With physical items, not so much commissions, because commissions we undersell chronically anyway as artists, but as physical items, be willing to sale. If someone's hesitating, throw in an extra.
Mm.
Don't drop the price, just throw in an extra. It can help. It can get you, stop that hesitation and get you that £20 that they were hesitating over.
And I think as part of that, so I bought off Amazon before the con, I bought a great big tub of plastic dinosaurs, and I swear that great big tub of plastic dinosaurs made me most of my sales, because people would be considering something and I'd just pop up from behind the table with a plastic stegosaurus and be like, it comes with a dinosaur. And I'd factored that into the cost. They cost pennies each, but the people just thought it was funny. And because that ice had been broken then, and they were like, oh, it comes with a dinosaur. Why does it come with a dinosaur? And then they'd end up buying the wallet and putting the dinosaur in it. Yeah, so that sort of thing. The things that you're throwing in don't have to cost anything. You're throwing in yourself.
Sweets, even. You could give sweets away.
Is the rule that it has to be wrapped in something still?
Yeah.
Oh yes, there's you need to make sure that you have the ingredients available, don't you? So you want the ingredients to be on the packaging of which you're giving it away in, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't give anyone an allergy attack.
I just wanted to buy a print.
It's swollen up. It's swollen face.
I think that's a lot of the table manners and etiquette nicely touched on. Obviously, if anyone in chat has any more questions about table manners and how to engage customers, feel free to pop the questions in the chat and I'll collate them at the end. We've talked a lot about running a table at Confuzzled, which is the main thing that happens here, but obviously a lot of you have said, if not all of you, you do online sales. So that does tend to mean that you need an online presence, either your own website or using other third-party furry art sites to advertise on. We've got a couple of people who've said that they have some input on running websites in various forms. So I'll start with Heartlily. You said that you have some input on this.
So I used to be a web designer. I used to make my own and code my own websites, and I don't even do that anymore. I just use things like WordPress and Wix, where you literally drag and drop things. But you do have to pay the monthly membership. So I wouldn't say go for a website straight away. You can start a presence on Furry Affinity, for example, or Twitter, and then use something like Google Docs to, track people's commissions and things like that. So don't feel you have to spend or invest money straight away if you're just getting out there.
Usually the energy of self-promoting. That's the main issue with creating your own website. And so Furry Affinity is great because it's already got the community there. And you can. That's how I built my online following, is by starting off at Furry Affinity mainly, and then growing from there and seeing spiderwebbing from there. So use what's already available and free to your advantage.
I have a very small online presence, which I'm trying so hard to build, but it's just being as consistent as you possibly can be in your content. Even if you don't have an art piece to put up, asking a generalized question and trying to get feedback is also really important. And then one of the other things that you can do is, say for Twitter example, I've got one running currently, but is do like a free art raffle or whatnot, because that gets people engaging. The algorithm will really, really like that, and then more eyes at least get to see what you do.
There's also things like you have to consider what sells well online and what doesn't. So my stuff doesn't sell online. It just doesn't. I can put a backpack up, and if people can't touch it, they're not going to buy it. They don't get that connection. So I just don't, which is why a lot of you probably don't know what I do. You'll see me at cons with bits and pieces, but you won't see me advertising my sewing online anymore because it doesn't sell.
I mean, getting an online shop up and running is a little bit of a task, particularly if you're doing it on your own, like using Wix. You've got to get all the photos together. I mean, if you're doing prints and things and all that, it's sorting out your shipping. It's a huge task, but it can be worthwhile, and we've all been thrown into a world of online over the past year and something. I don't know how long it's been now.
The last two Confuzzled, certainly.
Yes. So I think getting yourself a shop now is pretty important, and I think it's going to remain important for the future. But it doesn't have to be a Wix site, for example. Like there's Redbubble. There's, I don't know if
Ko-fi,
I've not had any experience in Etsy, but I've heard some troubles with it lately with shipping overseas. But there's sites out there to help you in that regard. I don't have as much experience.
Is a good alternative to Etsy, but so you can post things there without a seller's.
Sorry, what was the site?
Big Cartel. So, but
Big Cartel.
It's basically something that you can redirect. If you have a fan base, you can redirect people to, but people can't do a mass search of products because it's not like Etsy. It's not like a massive conglomerate of sellers, and you can just search hashtags. You have to be directly linked to it, but there's different tiers, and you can, as long as you're posting with one photo, you can post for free, and they won't take any interest from your sales. But if you want to upgrade it so you have multiple photos on one listing, they take a small cut of your sale cost.
Okay.
And there's things like self-hosted WordPress with a WooCommerce plugin, which sounds more complicated than it is. It's simple. It's something I'm happy to walk dealers through if they need it.
I think one of the really important things that you also need to consider when you're using any sort of online platform that has already built a community, and I mean even to a point with say Twitter and I think Instagram as well, is you need to look at your tags so that people can find it. So whatever you're selling, make sure you've got your tags done really well. And if you're not sure what it should be, do research.
Yeah.
And with Twitter and Instagram, never be afraid to repost if you don't have new content, because people who haven't seen it before will pick it up and share it.
Yeah.
And if it's a favorite piece, even people who've seen it before will pick it up and share it again. So do not be afraid to repost. The amount of crap that I have reposted over and over and over again this year, because I've been, much like a lot of people, in a sink of despair. Yeah, I've reposted lots, and I've managed to build my following by 300 people in the last 5 months, just by mostly reposting old stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. The average post on Twitter has a shelf life of about an hour, so you just keep posting.
And don't get disheartened if people don't interact with it. It's a-okay. Just try again later.
It's trial and error, isn't it?
Emotionally and physically exhausting shouting into the void of the internet. Keep it up.
But you can use apps like TweetDeck, who should make it a lot simpler. So, for example, I will sit down on TweetDeck on a Saturday morning, for example. I will schedule in all my tweets for that week along with posts, and then I just leave it, and it will do it all automatically for me during the week.
That's exactly what TweetDeck's really good.
A time saver and stress reliever. If you know that 9 o'clock at night is a peak time that people engage with your work, but you, like me, have ADHD and haven't got the attention span to remember when 5 o'clock is, let alone when 9 o'clock is, and it's 3 o'clock now, but you've remembered that you need to post at 9 o'clock, schedule it. Just schedule it.
Yeah.
Do it when you think of it, and schedule it for the time that you want to post it. Because otherwise, not posting it, you're just losing.
Best times for posts is such a hard question because you all have different audiences. So you should find out.
Yeah, I assume there's I don't really look into the stats and things, but I think there is ways to look at your stats in various social medias. I don't know if Twitter has one, but
you have to Google it.
Yeah, just Google it.
Stats on your posts for sure.
Yeah, it does, and I'm quite happy to help people with that as well because outside of all this,
like what Flux has just said, between 5 and 6 p.m. UK time is a fabulous time to post on Twitter because everyone is either at home or on their way home, so they're just doom scrolling.
Yeah,
and that's the perfect time.
While we're still on the topic of online marketplaces, things like Etsy and such, Flux in chat did ask, what are people's thoughts on using Facebook or Facebook Marketplace? I see a lot of artists outside of the fandom saying that it is a must, but I do not see many furries using it. Any of you guys use Facebook Marketplace?
I've tried.
I have. Mine actually sells better on Facebook Marketplace than it does anywhere else. But yeah,
on my Facebook art page,
it's your
that is
product.
just a graveyard of old artwork because no matter how hard I fought, I could not get any traction. Same with Instagram, no matter how hard I fought. And I just decided, cut my losses. I'm winning on Fair Affinity and Twitter, focus my energies on them because I'm just getting disheartened on the places that I'm losing. So when starting, try everywhere. When it starts working in certain places, focus on those.
Yeah, I mean, it's key not to spread yourself out too thin as well, because you will run out of energy. You've got to look after yourself as well, and managing that much social media, because there's new ones every blooming day, I swear. There's all kinds out there now. So pick the ones that work for you, because your content may be specifically better on some social medias than others.
So I made a good point about posting stuff close to payday. That works really well for some people.
That's a good idea,
It just depends how impulse buy your stuff is as well.
Streaming is another thing that I had quite good traction with in the past as well. Seeing it being done, I think, really encourages people to possibly buy, because they can see your process and they see that what comes out of it is good. So,
and then if they have questions, they can contact you immediately and get an immediate response back. So it's great.
Yeah.
Since we're getting into the last 10 minutes, and I know that we're going to want to do a Q&A, but there's one topic that I think is very important that should be covered, and that is the people who are certainly new to dealing and maybe thinking about getting into it is, how do you price yourself?
Ooh.
Yeah.
And this is there's probably going to be a range of different answers to this one, but the only input that I would put in to this, because I'm not like a proper art dealer, I'm an assistant, but the things that I picked up is always take into account the time it takes to make what you're doing.
Yeah.
Definitely. You need to take into consideration your material costs. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Materials plus time equals price.
I think a lot of people who buy artwork don't take into account the time it takes to make the artwork. Yeah. They look at it and they go, that's probably cost you that much in paper and that much in ink. But without actually being an artist and understanding the struggles.
So materials does cover digital artists as well, because I would say electricity, if you had to buy a piece of software, so if you're saying you're paying for Adobe Suite every month, you would divide that by how many commission slots you're opening, and you would put that as part of your materials. And obviously any sketches you do beforehand, things like that on scraps of paper, that's also part of your materials. So I make a lot of clay models now, and even though I don't use all of my wood or my metal or my clay, I have to factor that in, the waste, as it were, waste product, into pricing as well.
In regards to art print, how I tend to calculate it is, if it cost me 12 hours to create the work, I then add, say, £10 an hour to £120 onto the cost of how much these prints are going to cost, and then I divide it by the unit cost, and that's where I get my base price from. So say it costs you £50 to get 20 prints, it costs you £120 in time to make the prints. You add those together to £170, and then you divide it by 20, and that's your base cost before you break even. And then you add your profit range onto that.
Definitely have your overhead that you need to think about. But there's also going to be, for some people, hidden costs and whatnot, which would be, say if you're mailing something to somebody, you've got your your packaging. So what sort of things does your products come in? Not necessarily just the envelope or the box. Like, do you have extra bits that go into that? So I try to look at my package as a whole before I then go to price it, just so I know if it's going to be a larger box, it's going to cost X, then I just factor it in that way.
Yeah. And I did notice the conversation earlier, sorry, you said about postage. There was a conversation about free postage. Almost everybody offers some form of free postage, and it's not free. You're not absorbing that cost. You have to factor it in. So make sure that you are actually charging postage, but if you're offering free postage, it's a psychology thing. Just double check that it's legal to do in the way that you're doing it. But yeah, you can call it free postage, and actually you're just paying for the postage as part of the item cost, like they do on Amazon, eBay, everywhere.
I think if you're going to do that, though, it has to be free postage to the country you're in, or otherwise you're going to get really huge overhead fees if you're, say, shipping out to Europe if you're in UK, or America if you're in UK, because the costs then skyrocket.
Also, if you're trying to work out your time, it's good to note down what you're doing. So you might have done your first drawing and it was really popular, you want to put it up, but it was your first one, so of course it's going to take you longer than another one. Yeah. So do it a few times, and then this is how I do. I time myself to work out how much each piece takes, how long it takes, and then I can go, okay, well I only spent 3 hours this time, or 4 hours last time, and then I can divide the cost that way. Because if you say, this piece took me like 6 hours, but actually if you do it again, it takes you 1 hour, then you don't need to charge as you would normally do for that original piece. You can actually reduce your pricing, which actually makes you a lot more approachable, I would think.
Yeah.
So
I think the other thing
Blaze has asked. Sorry. Yeah. Blaze has asked about what about one of a kind stuff. So I know Hearts has started doing sculptures. My bags are complete one-offs. So for me, you just have to make sure that you're covering what you want to make a profit on. Make sure that you're covering your table cost, make sure that you're covering your materials and your time, and even your hunting down materials. So if it takes me 3 hours to find the right material for a customer, I'm going to charge them that 3 hours, and they're not going to know that's exactly what the charge is, but it is your time.
Concept time. So your concept time should be included. So my last model, I did a lot of planning, and that's all in here, and that was about 2 or 3 hours of planning, but I've accounted that into the cost now, and I will account that into future models as well, that I will spend at least 2 or 3 hours on a model to plan it.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving into like the last 4 minutes now.
I've got one more thing, short things.
Go for it,
Sorry. So I mean, how I've done things. When I started my path to doing freelance illustration and design, I found a book called Graphic Designer's Guild Handbook. It's a very, very good book. I highly recommend if you're someone that wants to take dealing and selling art and stuff or creative or stuff seriously, it's a very good book. It will give you a good insight on how to price and how in terms of dealing with legal stuff as well, because that's another area which obviously we're not going to go about, but like it's those sort of things it's good to know about if you plan to go down that path. So yeah, Graphic Artists Guild Handbook. It's a very, very good book. If you want to.
Anyone else? Last points? Otherwise, I'm going to move into some questions that are backed up. Awesome. Right. The first one I'm going to go with is a topic that we probably should have covered because it's very important, certainly when you are in the den. Aoif, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that name right. I apologise. Thank you. How do you manage your time, e.g. giving yourself breaks and holidays? I feel as though if I'm not working, I'm not earning.
Broken machine cannot work.
Yes.
So I tend to take a day off as and when I feel the burden. Or if my wife has organised a weekend of busyness, that's my holiday. I like creating. I tend to have days where I put less pressure on myself. So I'm creating for pleasure rather than working 8 hours to do commissions. And those, I feel, are holidays, but they aren't.
Yeah, I think I tend to run it that I basically work pretty much the same hours that Noonie does, because I want to try and spend time with him, obviously. I mean, I sleep later, so it's not quite the same.
But you still treat it the same amount of time as a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Don't overwork yourself. If you overwork yourself, what you produce will suffer. You will suffer. Your relationships will suffer. So it's part of work. Rest is work. It's so important to take breaks.
And in the den as well, you need to be taking breaks. You know, you have an assistant. If you don't have an assistant, get friendly with the dealer next to you and just say, hey, can you look after my table for 10 minutes whilst I go get some food? Put a sign up on your table saying that you are away only for 10 minutes and that you will be back. Or you can even put a set time for when you will be back so people know. So I usually go to lunch around 12:30 and I put on my table, I'll be back here at 1 p.m. and people know to come back at 1 p.m. You know, give them instructions.
Yeah. There's also creating alongside a 9 to 5. So some of us do still have to work a 9 to 5 or a regular job alongside our creativity. And you have to be kind to yourself, because if you just pile so much on, you will just end up in a massive form of burnout in your main job and with your creativity, and you'll just end up in a hole. And don't do that. I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah.
I think having a good well-being is important, because like a few years ago, I when I was freelancing with some US clients, like we had to do some bunch of illustrations for them, and it involved working late. I'd work stupid hours, like I wake up around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, have my breakfast, and then from 8 onwards, it's like a slog through, talking to people, from the States and dealing with them and everything, and obviously working along with them. But the sleep pan just goes out of control. But I think having a good sleep pattern, so that waking up in the morning, doing some exercise, and then getting ready for work, and then obviously taking regular breaks when need to. But having a good well-being, eating healthy, and all these things benefit to continuing to work. Otherwise, you're going to get feel stressed. Anxieties will start to rise, and you're going to feel
good.
Tense.
Just going for a walk or going to the shop is so good for your brain when you are a work at home. Someone who works at home, whether you're juggling working at home for a job as well as doing your self-employment artwork, just getting outside somehow to something menial is really good for your brain, really helps reset you.
Something I say to friends quite often is, a day off won't kill you, no days off will.
That's good to say.
There's one more question to be tackled, unless anyone has any further input on well-being and breaks.
I think it might be worth talking about well-being. I mean, I know we're at end of time, but I don't think we need to worry too much.
No, obviously, if people need to move on.
But do the questions, and then we'll touch on well-being in the den as well, because actually that's, if we're going back to den,
it's a large topic. So one more question I want to get through, just in case the person's running away because we're ending our panel. Jay has asked, I think the main question that I'd have is, how do you go about preparing a table that inherently sells adult or not safe for work items? The aspect of promoting while also having to censor your work.
Always have, like, if you have art prints and whatnot, and anything that is really, really thin, they make very different size folders that you can put your work into, and just make sure you're labeling that, because obviously not everyone wants to see your adult artwork. But at the same time, some people might want to pick it up and hold it and look through it privately, and that's a-okay. So that's what I would typically do. Or if I have then more adulty products behind me, if someone asks, so what do you have, then it's like, just give me 1 second, and I have like a little private section where I can pull stuff out where no one else can really see it. They just have to look over the table, and that's how I handle that.
Censoring
on a proof copy is also a good way to do it. So the classic aubergine over a couple of penises. They help break the ice, because people are like, haha, look at that silly sticker. And it also censors it, but people know what is being censored. There's that innuendo, that context is still there, but without it being a massive ejaculating penis in your face.
I think
and being aware of the rules of the space as well.
Make sure you don't break the rules of the space. That includes your online website provider. They will have their own rules for what you can and cannot sell. I mean, PayPal even. You're not technically supposed to sell anything adult through PayPal. Shush. Don't
tell them that.
So
always check.
They've just changed their rules now as well. They are massively cutting back on adult merch. Can't even sell anime porn over there or anything like that.
I think research is very, very important for all these things, like to make sure that what you do and what you plan to do fits in there with the rule set of, like, with any third party company you go with. Like even with Patreon, they I actually attended some of their Patreon talks. They have like webinars and stuff about content creators, and obviously one of the biggest issues with them again is adult. How do you host adult content on those sort of on their platform? And one of the important things they raise that you can do it, but if anything explicit has to be done externally, so you can have content on there, maybe like a preview, but then have a link to maybe like a cloud, your own cloud server or something like that to store material like that. So it's not on the website.
That anything explicit is behind the paywall, so no one who is under 18 can just stumble upon it.
Yes.
So
In,
yeah.
in regards to both Patreon and PayPal and whatnot, anything that I do that happens to be not safe for work, all I do is just I write NSFW, just so I have a little note for myself, and it doesn't say what it is, but I'll say, such or commission taken via, and then where it's come in. Was it Telegram? Was it Twitter? Was it email? So I have my reference, and I know how to get that person their files at the very end.
Right. I think that pretty much covers the etiquette of not safe for work sales. You wanted to touch on dealers' den well-being a
Yeah,
bit more.
we didn't really touch on that. It's just I think we probably cover it quite quickly, just to go through things you need to bring to stop you dying in the den.
Yes. Come prepared.
Because I think we've all experienced it where they've been playing with the AC and it's either been boiling hot or freezing cold. So wear a t-shirt, bring a hoodie, bring a blanket, bring water, a fan. Take
Fans
breaks.
are a lifesaver.
Bring
High
sweeties.
calorie treats.
Mm.
They are the perfect boost when the den is clearly too busy for you to get away. Shove a muffin in your mouth.
Yeah,
Bring good snacks.
I actually
always have
brought
water.
hotel breakfast. So I would smuggle the muffins from the breakfast at the hotel
Exactly.
into the dealer's
And that's
den.
my lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually my lunch is some smuggled breakfast.
Smuggle it.
Yeah.
Try not to
Brilliant.
bring any hot or smelly food into the den.
Yeah.
It's more of a respect thing. You might set someone else off, but also if there's loads of dealers sitting around and they're really hungry, you're going to get them all looking a bit.
Yeah.
We've ordered pizza.
Breakfast bars also are pretty handy as well to have, like little bars like
Yes.
that. Can
Yeah,
keep
like
you-
croissants and muffins and things, not
Oh.
a baked tomato.
They could get an
bacon butties.
assistant. I
Oh,
just
no.
want to raise the point that Bav and I have set up the system where we don't need an assistant because we ask to be clustered with a group of friends. So we all table watch for each other. We're all clustered together. There's like 5 or 6 of us. We make sure that we ask for our tables to be close together so that if one of us needs to dip out for a toilet break or grab a snack or a coffee from the hotel lobby, we can do that. And we know that our stock is safe. Our stock, it's going to be monitored by the friend next door who's going to say they'll be back soon, but unless it's priced, I can't sell it to you.
Yeah.
And that way, if you can't have an assistant, say your wife, like me, my wife would have normally been my assistant, but she has to look after my animals and she has to work. So that way, that helps with lack of theft and customers not knowing where the hell you are.
Yeah. I just saw Lapras raising her the price gun. That's a really good point, actually. Don't handwrite your prices unless your writing is immaculate.
Yep.
Print them. Print your prices.
So I have my husband as my assistant normally, and what happens is if I price something, like 2018, I brought paw printing, and I had 3 tables together for all the stuff that I brought, and trying to keep track of what was so difficult. And I'm just like, right, I'm not going to make this difficult on you. I will label it, and then all I have to do is go, that is this much. Lifesaver.
Right. Is there much else to cover? Should we move it on to...
We can move it on to the open panel Q&A. A question did come in from Lilith Moonbeam. How do we deal with thefts?
Oh.
I know they're rare, but I have heard of it happening.
It happened to me a few times. Stickers, whether or not they get stuck to someone's bag or they slip off the table, is classed as a theft. If you are leaving the den, do not leave anything in the den that's, I would say, above £2 overnight, or put it under your table out of the way. If it's during the day and you're worried about someone taking something, just put things out of reach. So my bigger packs of stickers are now further back, hang on the wall. My prints are higher up, obviously, so people have to actually reach to get them, or I have to get it for them. But I tend to leave very inexpensive things on the table itself, so, like business cards or things that don't really matter.
We personally recommend money boxes. I recommend bum bags or fanny packs, depending on your language, because that way when you leave the den, it's on you.
Yeah.
I think another thing to note is when you leave the den, when it closes, make sure you've got your personal, anything that you need for that entire evening. Because I've heard stories where people left their wallets in the den, and obviously Confuzzled will not open the door for any reason, because once that door's locked, that's it. You have to
Locked,
wait. Yeah, exactly. So it's gone. So the
Yeah,
warning
I've
there.
left my laptop in the den overnight, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was a real pain in the ass.
It's not Confuzzled staff that are going to, it'll be cleaners and stuff. And, you know, you don't know what will happen. They might knock something over as well. So you really want to protect your staff. Some people put blankets over their stuff overnight to make sure nothing gets shuffled around. Some people just take stuff down. But really, keep your valuables with you and don't leave them in the den overnight.
I mean, that would be another reason not to bring too much stock as well, because I do. I bring too much stock. I bring so much stock. I accept that I have to leave it there, and it may get pinched. I might not get there in time from the den opening. Someone might just take one of the little paws off the rack, and it's gone. There's not much you can do about it. You can't do anything. Once it's gone, it's gone. Nobody's going to see it. There's no cameras, to my knowledge, and even if there is, it's still unlikely you'll be able to see them. So,
I mean, like Zod was saying, having good relations with your neighbour
neighbours, yeah.
dealers means that you've got more eyes watching your stuff. If you are,
Neighborhood watch.
yeah,
if you
exactly.
decide to have a specific dealer's assistant on your table, like Tree does, I'm her assistant. That's 2 pairs of eyes watching one table, which is a very good deterrent.
Yeah.
That brings back to speaking to people that pass your table as well.
Yeah.
If they've already got a connection with you, they are far less likely to do you wrong in any way. So be human.
Unless they're unhinged.
Yeah.
Stand up,
Psychological.
eye level. Let them know
Puff
that
up.
you've seen them. Don't be like we were discussing earlier, the person who sits crouched down doing commissions, staring only at the piece of paper in front of them, because
Easy target then.
you know it sucks.
Yeah.
There probably will be. There's so many people who go to these conventions. You're gonna end up with one bag egg somewhere.
I mean,
They're looking for an opportunity. And
it's
it sucks.
also worth noting it's not always a bad egg who does it. Some people,
Oh yeah, no, that's fair.
some people just pick stuff up. It's just part of their mentality. They just pick stuff up and put it in their pocket. They may not even know they're doing it.
Or they
That's-
forget.
I've had
They forget to
stickers
pay
go
it.
missing.
Yeah, or they forget, they pick it up and then they walk away because their friend started talking to them. It's not always malicious.
I've had a whole conversation with someone where they were going to buy a thing. I forgot to charge them. They forgot to pay, and they actually came back and paid.
Yeah.
Yay.
That
Nice.
wasn't a Confuzzled. That was at a craft fair, but it happens.
One leaves their digital SLR on my table before because they were so excited by my stock and talking to me about a commission, they just abandoned this £500 camera on my table. So I hung it around my neck and waited for them to come back because I wasn't letting someone else come and pick that up.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, lost property, that's a thing. You get a lot of lost property sometimes left at your table.
People get distracted. They're so excited with what you're selling and what they're putting into their bag. They will put down a wallet, they'll put down their phone, they'll put down their digital SLR, and their brain will reset and they'll go.
It's actually worth checking every few hours or so. Walk in front of your table and see how it looks, and see if anyone's left their bag below, because you never know. You know, I've had a lot of bags being left in front of my table, funny enough. So I just tend to take them underneath. People come back and say, "Yep, got your bag." But it's also neatness. If you come back and have a look every few hours and see what they're seeing, you can see if you need to clean up anything.
Yeah.
Something I'd suggest when you set a table and then when you're either going for your break or you're closing for the evening is take a photo a bit farther away just so you can kind of see what your table looks like. So when you go to open again, you can see has anything happened.
Shall we start wrapping it up and do the self-evaluation bit?
Yep, I think it's very good to end on self-evaluation.
Before we do that, we at Confuzzled have to think about accessibility. We have quite a few attendees who are hard of hearing or hard of sight, and we have to think about accessibility. I got a commission from a gentleman because I knew some basic sign and had a pen and paper ready to converse with them. Always have a means to communicate with someone ready when they're not communicating as the standard way that we would communicate. Accessibility is important, especially in a place which is meant to be so inclusive, such as Confuzzled.
Yeah.
That's what I want to say.
That's a very good, very good point.
A really good point.
And even if they would normally communicate through just talking, the den can get very loud at times.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way
Audio
to.
processing disorder. when it's busy, you won't be able to hear anyone. So even just communicating via texting on each other's phone can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
I find that a lot of what I did in the den was actually reading body language and lip reading rather than actually hearing, because I couldn't understand a word everybody said.
I was going to say, I think the best way is just to have a calm demeanour and posture, and with dealing with people who are, have difficulty in communicating and stuff like that. And I think that will make it more comfortable for them to deal with it. Obviously, yeah, you've seen that dealers then can get really busy, and if you're in a good demeanour and relaxed attitude, I think it will probably relax them as well. So it's our job as dealers to calm the situation, because it can get intense. There've been moments that things get really warm as well. There've been times where some of the dealers are, certain areas of the hallway are really warmer than others. Some are really cold, some are really warm. But we have to try and control it. Yeah, offer scarves. Cool.
Right, self-evaluation then.
Which is very, very important. I think quite a lot of new people forget to do this. When you leave the den, leave the con, you finish your commissions, look over everything you've done, how much you've made, and don't be disheartened. Just say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What did I enjoy? And what did I dislike? Because that is all going to help you in your next venture when you try and do something, whether you post online or whether you go to another dealer's den somewhere else. You've got to look at yourself, get feedback from maybe your friends who came up to your table or customers whilst they're there, saying what you think, is it a good layout? But it's really important, because then you can assess if you need to invest a little bit more, if you just need to tidy things up. I mean, I asked someone one year, is my table too busy? And someone went, well, no, it's not actually. It's quite different to everyone. So what did I do? I went higher and I made it even busier. So now people are like, oh, wow, I get covered in plants when they come to my table. But I'm the only one who does it, and it's now my thing. So, but I had to go through a few years of discovering that to find out that's what people like, it's what people need. So don't be afraid to ask people.
Yeah, and the observation's really key there as well. Like looking where people look first, so that next time you can set it up, or even at when the den's starting to quiet down a bit, you can go around the front and move things around a bit, so if people aren't seeing your price list, move it somewhere where they're looking first. So quite often when people come to a table, they'll be focused downward. They'll be looking at the table. And some people won't look at eye level, I've found. They won't look at you because they don't want to be eyes, just in case you pull them in.
They'll look straight on the table.
Yeah, so just see what people are looking at first, and then you can put your thing you really want to sell there.
Your attention grabbers should actually be below eye level, which is madness, but yep.
Yep, it doesn't make much sense, but it's where people look. So.
It's also worth with self-evaluations, keeping a record what you're doing every day, how much you're making every day, because sometimes you want to go out after the den and have a fun, relax, but actually spend that 30 minutes to write down what happened, just so you remember. You know, after you've left the convention, because I do that, I forget, and then I come back and go, okay, cool. So actually, I sold this many of this print that day. Great, I'll make sure I print that many next time. So it does really help.
And factor in your costs. So if you're writing out what you did in a day, what you sold in a day, also factor in took £10 out of the till for lunch.
Yep.
Because that is cost.
Overheads.
Yep. Keep your receipts.
Yep.
Anything you have to spend out on whilst at a con, so travelling there, the hotel room, the food, the drink, anything like that, that is part of your business expenses, and that can negate the amount of tax that you have to pay at the end of the financial year.
Yep.
But taxes is a huge thing that probably needs
hours
and hours of its own discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole other video.
I mean, just to touch on it briefly, I think now if you're earning under £2,000 a year, you don't have to file a self-assessment.
You don't have to declare if any business income is below £2,000. You also don't have to pay any national insurance if your income is below £6,000, and you don't have to, in the UK, you don't have to pay any tax on your earnings under £11,000. I think it is now.
Yeah, I've been told different.
12.5.
I think it's 12.5 now, but it's worth obviously double check.
if you are selling things and making money off people like commissions, you do have to declare it no matter what amount it is.
I think
because
that changed last year.
But also, if you're doing
Under
that
£2,000.
and you want to buy a house in future and you didn't have a full-time job in that period and you were doing commissions, but you were still earning under a certain amount, you still have a record for HMRC in that period saying, actually, I was working, I just wasn't getting paid enough. And that goes to your, that actually helps with things like mortgages and, later on in life. So
And
it is
sort
worth
of
doing. Lapras is a perfect example.
Yeah. With the current situation, so obviously the thing that happened to us all over the past year and a half, there was a point where the self-employed were given some money
Yes.
in order to keep them going, and the
Not all
self-employed didn't have
self-employed,
those
because
records.
what my issue was is I tried to claim for some of that grant, but because my self-employment earnings were under the amount of my part-time job, they went, no, you can't have any of this grant money. So I lost loads of earnings because couldn't go to cons, so wasn't getting the earnings that I would normally get from my self-employment. But because I earned £500 more in that financial year through my part-time job, I wasn't allowed any of that grant.
That's bonkers.
It's
So
really important to keep those records.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it now. I didn't file for 1 year because I earned under the 2,000. They said don't file again. Yeah, thinking about it, I couldn't get those that grant because I didn't have all of the information. They wanted 3 years of forms. So, I mean, you don't have to if it's under £2,000, but do it anyway.
It's good practice.
Yeah. It's always good to practice.
And there's so much information on the internet. I don't think we're probably not really qualified to give you all of the information. So check.
We really are.
My
We're all in
sister-in-law
the
is an
UK.
accountant, so if you need advice, I have a direct source which is free.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, there's and just check in your local area as well, because obviously we're all from the UK, so we know what UK info is. So make sure you're checking online. Google is your friend.
Jay has just confirmed the tax-free allowance is 12,750.
Yeah. And that changes year to year, so always check. Okay.
Any more self-evaluation comments from the dealers?
See if you broke even. See if you at least covered your con costs. Because, yes, we go to the cons for fun, but also almost 80% of it is work for dealers. So you do have to make sure you're covering that cost.
Cover it, and also remember to have fun when you're outside the den.
Yeah.
Yes, don't leave the den in the den.
Yeah.
I think something else as well is at the end of the day when the den's closing, if people look a bit weathered and beaten and like you want to go hang out, if they then turn around and say you look really tired, please don't take offense, because it's a lot of being overly extroverted for some people that are naturally introverted. So sometimes they just need to go away and have a little bit of time to themselves, get themselves, back on their feet and be like, let's go back down and party. So it's never a rudeness thing.
Yeah, I mean, the last time
a recharge hour.
Yeah, I normally, well, not normally, but I was quite ill because I had B12 deficiency, so I always went and had a nap after the den. Had a shower and a nap, and that was me. And then I'd come back out all refreshed. So yeah.
All right, I did put a message out because I believe we're going into like a more of a live chat thing.
Yeah.
But I said if anyone wasn't comfortable asking questions in person, it was an opportunity to post it, and I had one question come through, and that was from Kami. Kami's Emporium again. The only con I've ever been to was Furk. I don't know that one, so. But I noticed people have branding, i.e. a logo on show. Is it important? Is a logo and branding important for you to be a dealer, I guess, is the crux of the question.
I'd say a name.
Start off with no.
Just a name.
It matters.
It's all about the work.
Yeah.
I think it's personal. It's completely personal down to what you want to do.
I have my webcomic plastered, webcomic title and logos plastered everywhere when I go to a con, because that's what I want to get people hooked on. My art is important to me, it's a great source of income, but the thing that I want people to know about is my webcomic. So that is plastered everywhere. So it all depends on what you're selling. If you're just selling yourself, just put your name large, put your Twitter handle large somewhere, just so that people can see it. They can see who you are. They're not going to an anonymous table.
Yeah.
Because
I
that
think
is important.
The key thing is to make sure you're recognizable. So a logo can help if you want to affirm who you are, like Steffi's got. So if they go to your Twitter page, they know it's you, they recognize the logo. So you could use a logo, or if your name is recognizable enough and you put your Twitter handle or whatever you want to send people to clear on your table or your business card, I think that's enough, really.
Yeah, but don't worry too much about it. I mean, it develops over time. My logo's definitely changed. I used to have a lily pad on it, funny enough. So they do develop and they do change. But when you do start doing branding, do it across the board. Do it all over your social media, all over your merch, things like that. So it is actually an identifiable brand in that way. When I first started out, it used to just be on the back of my prints, this little sticker. That was it. Bit by bit, it's kind of bled into my icons now and on social media. So
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like I've through a massive repeating project where
My camera's back
I've
to
done
never mind.
a website and whatnot, but it all started from me doing packaging, so product packaging, so that this was my inspiration. I could then take that and put it across everything I do, and so when people see something that's yeah, like this sort of stuff, you'll be able to tell that's Lippy.
Yeah. I did just see there's a question about, is there a dealers Discord? There is not, I believe. Oh no, there's sometimes there's a dealers chat on Telegram, but that keeps going down.
I think it kind of starts and stops every year when the con ends. They shut the Telegram chat.
Yeah,
down.
the official one does.
I'd love to have a Discord.
Yeah,
That would be good.
we could build it.
around.
We could build it. We could build it. We could share a link to it if we set up a basic one now and then, just as a place for someone to gather, and then we can build it up from there as a hub of information and idea sharing.
Yeah.
Why don't we build it from the one we've been meeting in?
Oh,
Yeah,
you
we
could
could
just
do.
I was gonna say.
a little private one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could just send that link out now, and people could go join that.
We'll add some more professional-looking channels for.
Yeah, and you can see all the nonsense we've been doing.
All the prep work?
All the prep work.
Mm.
I've completely forgotten how to do anything now. How do we share the channel? There we go, invite people.
This has been lovely, though. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's been really great. It's been so good to hear everyone's input on all of this.
Because I'm meant to be going to a 5-year-old's birthday party.
Yeah, no, yeah, we should wrap up.
Yeah, we should wrap. Are we doing the open Q&A?
Are there any more questions?
Go on.
If people want to ask a few more questions, otherwise we can just open up the chat so everyone can chat. It'll be chaos, but
I'll stop
But it's an
recording
opportunity to
shortly.
say hey to us.
yeah.
So I'll stop recording then. Let me know when to stop.
Any more questions? It doesn't look
suppose-
like it. So yeah, it's been lovely having all of you in to speak. It's been really good. I hope we've given everyone something to think about. Some of us might still be around, and I'll open up the chat to everybody. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.